Okay, so thank you so much for doing the homework. And we've gathered it here in the front. If you haven't given it, you can still give it later at the break. We're going to look through them over the break in the next couple of hours. And we'll ask a couple of you to come and share your thoughts with us. In the meantime, I wanted to also mention that the concepts we did yesterday and today are very much a different discipline, a business discipline, and today we're going to do a marketing discipline. So we don't have to fully understand everything, because it's impossible for us to learn everything about marketing in one day. But it's important for us to start understanding some of the concepts that drive our clients to want us to do the translation. So, as I said yesterday, we need to understand the context within which we are working and what are the people who are asking us to do translations and interpretations, what their interest points are. So what they want to know and what they want in general. So today, we're going to talk about content management. Now, do you all know what we mean when we say content? Raise your hands. Content. Okay, so content is anything which can be put into something else. Okay, that is the traditional word for content, the traditional meaning. Okay, so if you have a box, what's inside the box is called the content of the box. Okay, now this has got nothing to do with what we're going to talk today. What we're going to talk today has a slightly different meaning for content. Here is everything which is words. Okay, so on the website, when you're looking at any page, anything which is words is content. But you can also have content which is pictures or videos. So the website acts like a box, and what is inside the website is its content. Okay, that is why we call it content. And content management is a very big discipline and a very big sector, because imagine all the types of words we have, the types of writing, the types of graphics, the types of videos. It's vast. Okay, so who knows who is in charge of content of a website? In an organization, who is in charge? Anyone? Any thoughts? Okay. In an organization, the marketing department is in charge of content. Okay? And we all know marketing, right? Okay. So the marketing department used to do, in a few decades ago, used to do a lot of advertising. And their advertising was, you know, for television, it was for brochures, for ads in magazines, all of that was advertising. Well, that was the traditional content, okay? So imagine everything advertising was doing 30, 40 years ago was content. Today, because everything is digital, the content has become digitized. So when we have the ads in television, I mean, we still have them, but now we have a lot of videos on the website. Okay, so this is now where advertising is moving. But of course, because to put things on a website and to put content on a website, even videos on a website, is now easy. Okay, 30 years ago, it was not easy to do a film for television. You had to spend a lot of money to do that. But today, everybody can post a video on a website. So because there is that ease of creating content on the internet, there is a proliferation, meaning there is an immense amount of content on the internet. Therefore, we are starting to need to manage this content. And that's why marketing now is spending a lot of their efforts and time in managing content. Okay? Do you want to?
I think so.
Okay. Raise your hands if you do have any questions. Before I go on, interrupt me, please raise your hands. So we clarified what content is, but we want to take this a little deeper. So content, some people say, is what you say on the internet, okay? But on the other hand, you have the people who read the content. So what does the user want to read? What is the user interested? Okay, so we can say anything we want, but if the user is not interested to hear it, we have wasted our content, right? So the very important word in content management is the word relevance. And relevance means that I am giving the audience, the users on the internet, on the website, what they want and what they're interested in. Therefore, they are staying on my website. They do the click. They buy the product. Okay? So relevance is a word that you should understand. Every time any client comes to a translator to translate a piece that is going to go on a website, they are looking from that translator to make sure that the text they're going to give back, the words, the content they're going to give back in the other language is relevant for that language. So in everything we do linguistically, for the internet, relevance is the most important thing we have always got to have at the top of our list. So you do not need to learn all of this, but it's good for you to have an idea of how the whole content works, okay? It is a very complicated workflow. And I say workflow because there are many things that are involved. So in the beginning, you have the business people, the organization, and these people create marketing content. Marketing content is designed to make people buy something. You have the product content. The product content is the descriptions of the product and how to use it. This is very important because somebody may buy a refrigerator and they want to go on the internet to see how to adjust the temperature. So they're going to go on the internet in the client's website and try to find the content for the product. There is rich media, which means all the graphics and all the videos and all the trainings that are available. There is customer support. Now, customer support used to be you pick up the phone and you call, and there's a call center at the other end, and you say your problem, and customer support helps you. Okay? Now, you don't do that anymore. You have a chatbot, or you have a window, or you have a live person, that online will, help you. So customer support is changing, and it's becoming content. Now, who knows why customer support is becoming content? Because we are automating all the information, when you're typing something, it'll give you automatically a list of all the things that are relevant with some of the words you're typing. So you can pick and choose and read an already made answer to your potential question. Okay? Now that is called customer support content, okay? Because they're trying to help you find everything by yourself before you actually get to speak to a person. There is the commerce content. When you're buying something, you have to go through the website to see the product, to see the specifications. There will be remarks from other buyers. There will be information for competition. All of that is commerce content. There is regulated content. The regulated content, for example, is the local regulations for a specific product for a specific country. So that content can be different from each country. And then there is the technical content, which is usually technical support if it's a digital product and so on and so forth. So imagine all these people in the organization. They're all creating content that goes on the website. There are websites that are so huge. Who can tell me of a Chinese huge website? Very good. So you understand the amount of content that grows and grows, and when you have multiple people contributing and adding content, you need to manage this content very, very well. And of course now we're talking about one language here so far, because this is created, this content, mostly at the head office. But there are companies who create content in different countries. So for example, there could be a big organization that their engineering is in a different country. So the technical content may be created in a different language. These all depend on the company. So there's multiple ways that this can happen. So now, once we have all this content created, there are so many billions of words, and there are so many languages, and there are so many cultures. And remember yesterday, no, did we speak about personalization? No. Okay. Now, you see the word personal there. I'm going to take a moment and ask you, how many of you have noticed that when you are on a website, it remembers your browsing history, and it then starts personalizing it and giving you information that the computer thinks you want? Okay? That is called personalization. Okay? So personalization is extremely important. Think about the billions of people and the billions of words and information on the website. How do you connect the right person to the right information and content that they want? They can only do it with personalization. So personalization is a whole database of its own, you know, in these big organizations. And they have all the history and all the data, so they can create a unique experience, a personal experience for every person. And now, of course, with the internet and the global thing, it has to be 24 hours, 7 days a week. So how do you do all of that for everybody and keep it personalized and have all the cultures right? So this is the complexity that we are dealing with in today's content management. On the other hand, we have multiple channels. A channel is where you are going to deliver the content. So for example, we don't all go to the same places. Okay, so I go to LinkedIn, you go to Facebook, right? But the content has to be both in LinkedIn and in Facebook. So each of these is a different channel. So now imagine that you have all this content that was created from the organization. It has gone through all the personalization and all the hundreds of languages, and now you have another few hundreds or thousands of channels to deliver that content. So you have social media. And as we know, countries are different in their social media. We have different applications. We have mobile, websites, videos, forums. All this content has to have a presence in all these channels. Otherwise, you have created content that doesn't find the users, or the users can't find your content. It is a very complex endeavor.
在这个地方呢，大家可以看到，其实从左到右它是有连续性的。然后我先从一个小问题开始提起啊。咱们通常用的用户手册属于哪一种类型？内容管理内容的哪一种类型？对 ，product content。好，第二个问题是，为什么客户服务属于内容管理的一部分？ 为什么客户服务是属于内容管理的一部分？大家现在，比如说你要去网上银行，你要想问某个问题，联系人工客服之前，他会让你先输入你问题的类型，他会首先给你推荐已经回答好的问题，对不对？都可以去试一下。对，这些东西都是客户服务的一部分，也是需要我们内容管理的一部分。尽量是可以提前准备好的问题，比如常见的问题啊，我忘记密码怎么办？然后银行卡遗失怎么办？这些都会有固定的回答。然后等问题实在解决不了，才会到人工这么一个环节。并且呢，整个趋势是，首先是文本展示，然后呢是机器人应答，好多都是机器人来应答。到最后呢，可能才是人工。这就是为什么客户服务是这个内容管理的一部分。还有一个咱们讲的是 regulated content。举个例子，外国的医疗器械要进入到中国，它是需要在中国的药监局进行备案注册的，整个过程你需要内容管理，都是需要内容管理的。还有一个在讲的 personalization， 比如说你要在网上搜一个猫粮，你会发现很快很多网站，包括百度啊，都会给你推猫粮的广告。甚至有人在语音当中跟同学聊天，说我明天想去钓鱼，你看很多搜索引擎都会给你推所有的渔具的广告。咱们在这个地方叫精准的营销，但是在内容管理的地方呢，就是他们可以筛选你搜索的关键词，然后呢做 personalization， 就是每个人呈现的内容是不一样的，这就是内容管理的其中一个叫精准营销的一个部分。
So this is another way of showing you in a graph the explosion of content. So you can see we have the product. The product can be, let's say, a refrigerator, or it can be an application, a video game. Let's say it's a video game. And then you have the assets. So that would mean that you have the different ways that the product is being delivered. So for example, if it's a video game, it could have 3 versions, or a number 1, number 2, number 3. So it launches and it becomes bigger. Then you have the variants. You have the video game is very successful with one character, so you have a variant that character has more time. So there's a 4th one. So you get all these variants. Then you have the different languages. So you start adapting it for language. Then you personalize it. So you have all these video gamers, and each of them has their name, and each of them plays in a different way. So you start, giving them what they want, closer to what they have been playing like, so that you give them this particular gun as opposed to something else, And then you have the different channels. Okay, in a video game, it's not a good example to show the channels. A blog would be, for example, something to show many channels. So you go to every channel and you put a link of the blog, so you can draw traffic from Facebook, from LinkedIn, from all the different, WeChat. You try to capture the audience and bring them to the link. And then you have all the devices, of course. So, are you on a laptop? Are you on your watch wrist? Are you reading an e-reader book? What is your your device? It can be multiple devices.
好，就一个小点，什么是 web traffic？ 对，咱们讲的流量。
So, because content needs to be managed, the best way to manage something is to create a strategy. And we all know what strategy involves. You have to have objectives, you have to have a description of what the situation is, then you have to break down how you're going to work towards achieving those objectives, and what you're going to do to implement the actual strategy, and finally, how you're going to measure it. Okay? Now, this is all very good to create that strategy, but you need a lot of information. So before you actually can start creating this strategy, you gather your data, your information. So you start by looking, who is your audience? If you have a website and a product, who do you address the issue? Is there a problem that it's dealing with? Do you have multiple audiences? If it's a video game, is your audience, the 14 to 18 group, or is it the 25 to the 35 group? What is your audience? Or is it multiple audiences? For example, if it is a magazine, is it addressed for cultural people, or is it addressed to scientific people? So there is different audiences for every time. Now, we use the term persona when we want to describe demographics, okay? So it comes from the word person, but a persona is more of a description of this demographics, okay? Now, another term that we use a lot is the term use cases. That refers to how a person that goes to the website uses the website, okay? So if you have WeChat and there are like 15, 20 functions, there are some people that only use 2 or 3 of the functions and never use 1 or 2. And there are other people that use only those functions. So how you use, which features you use in the website, is going to be called a use case. So a use case is important because when you follow the persona and the use case, how they use it, you see where they take their clicks. So you're trying to find out what they're looking for to give them an even better experience, to help them, to personalize it. So here you have an issue. What is the content addressing? Why do you have a product here? Is it solving a problem for people? Is it for fun? Is it to stay in touch with people? What is the purpose of the product and the website? Then you have, what is the unique aspect of this product or website? For example, there may be many social media. What is unique about Facebook that the other social media don't have? What is unique about one refrigerator over another? What is unique about one airline over another? You have the content format. What are the formats that you're going to follow? Is it education? Are you trying to educate your users how to use the product? In which case, you should use infographics. Or is it something you want to share information? You could use a blog. Are you trying to get the users and the members of your website to talk to each other? You can use a forum. So these things need to be clarified and discussed and brainstormed before you even start having the content strategy. Because with this information, you will be able to say, this is what we need to do for the product. The channels. Every country is different. But when you're creating your product for the first time, and your strategy, you want to see what type of content will go where. So you need to start thinking and looking at the competitors. What do they do? What does the social media require from you? So for example, if you want to be putting blogs, LinkedIn will allow you only to put up to 500 words. But if you want to have a longer blog of 1,000 words, you can go to Medium, which is another platform for blogs that allows you to have larger articles. So you need to know what each of these platforms and delivery channels are going to allow you to do. And finally, how are you going to create the content, and how are you going to publish, deliver the content? And today, of course, because we're talking about so much content in so many channels, there are technology and automated tools that you can do all of this. So when you are creating a content strategy, you start with the goals, then you go to the editorial. Okay, you have to create the content, so you need editors, writers, so on. Then you're starting to talk about governance. Governance is the policies that you're going to put, the guidelines, because the authors can't just write anything they want. They really have to follow the rules. You may want to have style guides. All of these are part of governance. Then you have to be very clear about the personalization. How are you going to work the personalization? Who are your personas? Every website is going to have a list of possibly hundreds of personas. Some products, like video games, may be limited. They may have up to 10, 15 personas. But all the big websites are going to have hundreds of personas. And if you remember, we talked about use cases. A small website is only going to have 2 or 3 use cases because it's only going to have 2 or 3 features. A huge website is going to have hundreds of use cases. And the way they deal with use cases is they sit together, brainstorm, and they say, okay, if I was a male, 25 years old, accountant, and I want to go on the website to find out how much this costs, where would I go? Okay, and then they start looking through the features to see what would the journey, what would this person need to do to get to the information that he or she needs to get to. That is a use case, okay? Then we're talking about localization. So we've set up everything. We need to know which countries are we going to localize to. Where is our audience? If our audience is only in, APAC, for example, then we don't need to localize immediately for Europe or the other way around. Taxonomy is a very difficult concept to understand with content, and we don't need to fully grasp it. We just need to understand that it is part of the content management. If you remember from your biology, we have the taxonomy of species, okay? Darwin has given us that everything started from the bacteria. From the bacteria, it moved to various other species, and then it started becoming larger and larger until we reached the mammals. And we belong to the species of mammals. Now, that picture with the tree of where does every species come from is an example of taxonomy. So when you have a content, or another example to understand it is an organization chart. You have the president, and to the president you have 2 vice presidents. Each vice president may have 5 directors. Each director has a team. That is a taxonomy. You can, it's how it's categorized. So it's another word for categorization, okay? So how do you categorize all your content is something which is very important for websites. And when you have large websites with millions of pages and information, the way you categorize it and organize it is going to determine how easily the users are going to find something they need. So it has to be intuitive, it has to be natural, it has to be something that you don't have to dig very difficult to find, okay? Now we don't need to say a lot more about taxonomy just to understand that it's a big branch of content. Technology is very important. Again, we're talking about millions of documents, millions of website pages, and we're talking about so many channels and devices. So how do you manage all of that? You can only automate it. So on the one hand of technology, we have the content creation. Okay, so content creation means that if we have authors, we want them to make their life easy, write it well. We want to make sure that it's optimized, that the stylistic, we're going to talk about these separately, so don't worry, we're going to go through each of these stages. but I'm just giving you the idea now. And each of these authors need to follow certain rules, so that you need to have it automated. Then you need to take that and automatically distribute it in the various channels and automatically publish it, different days, different channels, okay? So it's a complicated thing that can only be done automatically. And then you have analytics, data analytics, how you analyze the information you get from the website. So every time anybody comes on your website, every click they make, every page they change gets recorded. And the way people use the website is giving the company the information they need to adapt. Are they doing something which is generating sales, or are they losing the people after the 5th click? So for example, they say that if a user goes on a website, they need to be able to find what they want by the 3rd click. If by the 3rd click they haven't found something remotely signifying that they're on the right track, they're going to go. But if they find something, they may do another 2 clicks to get to it, and then you're lost the user. Okay, so that's where taxonomy becomes important.
我给大家就提一点啊，刚才反复强调了一个 taxonomy， 在中文里边就是咱们讲的分类学。我所有的内容，我需要把它按照不同的标签进行一下分类，这样可以快速的来定位。
So we're going to take each of them one by one. Okay, so let's start with goals. Okay, the marketing and content goals are the same with any strategy. You have to have objectives and goals. So in marketing, the usual goals are to create brand awareness. You know, you want somebody to know the name. WeChat wants everybody to know WeChat, right? And so does Nike, and so does Google, and a lot of brands. You also want to make sure that the positioning you create for your brand is the correct one that will give you the most clients and the most awareness and exposure. You want to make sure that the people are loyal. Your customers will come back to you. You don't want to have them unsatisfied. You want to satisfy them because you want them to come again. And you also want to give them value, because today, if you don't give them value, they're not going to come back to you. So these are the marketing. Then you have educational. If you are a big digital company with a lot of digital products, you want to give them the information they need and the support and the help. You want to educate them how to use your product effectively, because if they can't use your product, then they're not going to use it. So we all know the example of Trados. Trados is very difficult to use. Now, if we had an alternative, a good alternative, would we be using Trados? We would be using the easiest of all the alternatives. So we want to make sure that we give our customers everything as easy as possible for them. Then you want to drive traffic to your website. So you're going to use the social media to give links to drive them to your website. You want to generate leads. Okay, so this is a marketing term. Generating a lead means that you create interest in users, okay? It doesn't mean that they're going to come and buy it, but you've created that interest. So you're using different channels that are not your regular ones to make people aware of your product and to come to your website. That is generating leads. And then you have to convert leads. Okay, converting is that you got the user, the prospective client. The prospective client is another way of saying a lead, okay? So you get now the prospective client to come to your website. Well, that's not enough. You need to convert that prospective client to buy your product or to register and be part of your community, whatever it is you're trying to do. And finally, you want to have social engagement. The way to create brand awareness is by having your users talk about you. So the more you can help them get engaged with your product, the more they're going to be talking about you. But of course that means that you have given them value and everything. So let's go to the second stage, editorial. So a content is also called an asset. Okay? Now this is very important to let you understand this, because a company that has millions of websites has millions of words and content, and that content belongs to them. But as we know from language, you cannot put value on that. But at the same time, it's an asset. So they are starting now to call content assets. Okay? So a blog is a content asset, a specific article. A page that is a product description is a content asset. Okay? Do you all know what an asset is? Asset is a financial term that you have something of value. So for example, in property, your house is your asset. Yeah.
这个大家应该比较熟悉啊，在金融里边 ，assets 就是你的钱，就是你的资产。在比如说咱们内容管理的时候，你的所有的这些内容就是你的 assets。比如说咱们在做翻译的时候，你翻译出来的译文，你的语料库，你的翻译记忆库，这些都是你的 assets， 就是你的东西，就是你的 assets。
Okay, so your content, you need to do an audit. Now, an audit is going through everything you have and writing down what it is you have. Okay, so it's like doing your inventory. So you have a storehouse, a storage, and you want to go there and put down list every single item you have in that storeroom. Okay, that is called an audit or inventory. Okay. With your content, because it's so easy to create website pages, you find yourself that you have so many billions or hundreds or thousands of pages that you don't know what each it is. So you have to have a content asset audit. Okay? In this audit, you have to list what the channels are. You have to use a spreadsheet so you can have different columns, and that is how we do it. We still do it manually, although we use the more automated versions of sheets, spreadsheets. You have to add the assets, the content assets information, data. So for example, what is the URL of that particular page? You record it, so then when you're going back to it, you can click on it and see what it is. Are there an SEO, which is, what is this?
Search engine optimized.
Search engine optimization. What do you call it here?
我们在这地方也叫 SEO。
Oh, okay.
We call it SEO too.
Okay. Do you have tags? Do you have any other keywords? All of these things need to be recorded on the audit spreadsheet. Then you need to analyze the data. So, for example, if you find out there are pages there that you have, but nobody knows about them, some of them may not even be actively linked to something, you can have a column which will say delete, remove. Or you can have a column says this page needs to be updated. This information is 5 years old or 2 years old. Things have changed. And you put a red flag, yes, somebody has to come and update this. And then if there's nothing you need to do, you just keep it as it is. And then sometimes you want to consolidate. You want to put 2 or 3 pages together into one, because you have 2 small pages of the same thing. Now, every time somebody clicks, it's 1 more click. So consolidation of pages can be an important thing. So if you find in your audit that you have 2 or 3 pages similar, then you put them all together into one. And then you want to check the competition. What does the competition do? What is their taxonomy? What is their way of handling some of these SEOs or all of these things? So you have a really good picture that you have drilled down to every single page of your website. Now, a content asset audit is something extremely difficult to do unless you know what you're doing. Okay, and it has to be done with people that understand the business and the content. So if you have a large website, let's take Tencent for example, and it has hundreds of pages, I can't just go there and do a content audit. I need to know the products, I need to know their intentions, okay? So let's move to the next slide, is what types of content are there, okay? And this is not a final list. This is just a few examples because there can be so many types of content. But let's start with customer facing, external, on the website. It'll be marketing, blogs, ebooks, case studies, infographics, newsletters, reviews, customer reviews, press releases, news, you know, all of these things are part of marketing content. If it's education, it's the how-tos, it's the product descriptions, guides, white papers, you know, there can be so many things. If it's feedback, it could be forums and surveys and quizzes and polls. All of these are different types of content. If it's user-generated content, it can be reviews or interviews. It can be so many other things, or for example, in e-commerce, the product reviews, that is user-generated content. In social media, such as LinkedIn, when somebody puts a post out there, that's a user-generated content. And when they put a blog on the LinkedIn platform, again, it's user-generated. Images, you can have charts, graphs, timelines, cartoons, you know, you name it. All of these are different types of content. Now, this is a spectrum of the enterprise content, which is again a little bit more specific on the enterprise rather than the marketing. Again, we don't need to go through it all. It's there, it's going to be on your slides. It's more designed for you to get an idea, because every time you come across something that is given to you to translate, you will find it here. It's going to be one of these things that an enterprise is asking you to translate. And you can see that there are different types. Is it a transactional, meaning a transaction between you know, a business and another business, or a business and the customer? Is it a business contact of whether it's web content, corporate records, or anything like this? Or is it persuasive content, meaning marketing, you know, blogs, web content, and so on and so forth? And there's some examples. There's the technologies that they would use. So you can see that it's content management is a very large discipline at the moment and sector. And our translation and linguistic, you know, interpretation in other languages falls underneath this. And one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to help our language industry understand those people that generate the content for us, so we can then start becoming elevated within this environment and start being part of it. So when the authors are writing the content, we're right there at the top with them, instead of afterwards, after they publish, then they ask us for translation. The more we understand of how they work, the easier we'll be able to elevate our profession. So when it comes to Editorial, what are the team members? Okay, so they have different names, and I'm sure that in Chinese it'll be similar. They can be content curators. A curator is not somebody that necessarily writes the content, but they take content from right, left, and center, they change it slightly, and they make the news, for example, or they make the highlights. You have authors who write, and you have subject matter experts. You have content moderators for forums and for community environments. You have SEO copywriters, because SEO is extremely important. Digital user experience writers. That is very popular right now because they have found out that it's the authors that are used to writing for explaining information are not the best writers necessarily to understand how the user needs to be guided through the website. And these user experience writers are using their expertise of how to create the words in such a way as it's becoming intuitive to the users to go from one place to the other. Lead generation writer. These are the writers that will write the blogs that will go and get published everywhere to bring prospective customers in. You have your influencers, your famous people that you're going to pay them money to write something about you. You have your social media writers, a completely different type of writer. Advertising, technical writers, brand journalists, where you will give them information and they will write about your brand. Part of the team is also local, regional, and remote, as well as your head office. So a lot of the times you will have people contributing to the content from the local offices where the content is being localized. So you're going to be having people do it there as well. And of course you're going to have us, translators, editors, and transcreators. We're part of the team, and it's important to remember that we're part of the team.
我就提两条点。刚才今天同学们在议论那个 SEO， 在国内咱们叫搜索引擎优化，对吧？其实你如果提 SEO， 大家都知道是什么东西，就是关键词搜索，优化关键词。另外一个 UX 是那个 User Experience 的一个缩写。他刚才反复提了一个词叫 intuitive。What is intuitive? Intuitive。咱们查字典看都是叫直觉的，是吧？好，其实有一个更接地气的词叫用起来好上手，就是好用。如果你到一个网站里边，比如买东西的时候，一切都很顺畅，然后你不用反复的提交这个链接啊等等的，很顺畅，这个过程就叫 user intuitive， 就这个网站非常好用，或者这个用户手册非常好用。对，然后还有一个最后最下面有一个叫 transcreator， 这个在国内现在也逐渐提的越来越多了。好多同学，包括老师，都是教翻译做翻译的。咱们知道，尤其是从汉译英的时候，我没有必要把每一个字、每一个词都要翻译出来。这时候呢，我们需要 transcreate， 在中文里边，咱们讲它叫创意，对，创造性的翻译。我可以把它更贴近用户的需要，进行一个翻译，或者是 rewrite， 甚至是重写。
Thanks. Okay.
Lead generation.
Generating leads, generating prospective clients.
What is
Okay. A lead is when you're being led to something. So a lead is it's a marketing term for someone that is a prospective client. So let's say that your product is here and the prospective client is here. To generate a lead is to generate that connection with the person to lead the person to come to you, to your website. So generating a lead is generating that person coming to you. You're making them interested to come to your website. You're leading them to your website.
刚才我问他一个问题，我也不知道这个什么意思，叫 lead generation writer， 在中文里边有对应的这个，我不太清楚，在中文里边有对应的这个职位，或者是有一个对应的翻译吗？叫什么？引流导流是吧？啊，可能就是这个意思，引流或者导流。他的意思就是说，我有产品，我有目标客户，我怎么样让目标客户知道我这个产品，怎么样去使用它？所以你要创造一些内容或者写一些文字，引流导流，这个是很好的一个翻译。谢谢啊。
Okay, thank you. So we talked about governance, and governance is very important. So what is it? What does it do? It maximizes the value. So it helps writers understand what is more important for them to be writing content about, to maximize that value. It also helps by creating guidelines for the brand. So you never say this, you never say that, you always say this, you never use this color, you always use this color. Okay, that's brand strategy and guidelines. Consistency. You know, we know from our work, consistency is very important. So these are part of the guidelines for style guides, how to make the search easy. So these are part of governance. For example, you always use this word to make the search easy. Ensuring content is authentic. A lot of the times, you know, people will tend to recycle content, and the company may have a policy not to recycle, that once it's used once, it's not going to be used twice. Another company may have a policy of using the cycle once in every channel, for example. Then you have compliance and regulations for different countries. That has to be part of the guidelines, because writers cannot write something which is not appropriate for a country. So, for example, you know, when they're writing a blog about food, for example, in India, they can't write about beef. You know, what's the point? It's going to be insulting. And then you have to have business continuity. You have to have the content being created in a scalable way. So we talked about scale yesterday. It's all about being able to double something with easy steps, not having to redo something the hard way. And migration. Content needs to be able to move from one technology to another. I recently did a content migration for one of my clients, Nike, in the US, where we had to take the content which was in the same platform, but it had a different taxonomy. It was all over the place. So we did an audit, and we migrated each page to the new taxonomy that we created, the new categorization. So migration has to be done constantly, all the time. Access controls. Who writes, who deletes, you know, who changes, who edits. You know, these are very important things for governance and for people to know who can do what. Digital security is very important. That's the engineers that have to make sure. And of course, protecting the data, because there are now very, very strict laws about this that have to be adhered to. Let's talk a little bit about personalization. Now, there's some interesting facts there. 48% of consumers spend more when the experience is personalized. And 90% of marketeers believe personalization is the future. 74% of customers get frustrated when content has nothing to do with them. Now, I know about, you must have the same thing, but I sometimes would use my husband's login details to Amazon because he's got Prime and I don't, so he gets free shipping and I don't. And of course, when the personalized experience is completely different. So I'm looking for something and it's giving me other things. So this is important. So permission-based personalization is important. In Europe, we have what we call the GDPR guidelines, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. It came into existence just last year, and it has thrown everybody off. We're still running after that. Now, they do, you know, threaten very, very harsh fines, and people have complied. But it's very difficult to comply when you have this personalization aspect. So they have to build very, very strict security around that. Now, what are the benefits? You target specific customers, specific audience, the personas you want, right? You can create better content for each persona. You can build customer relationships because now it's personalized. They feel it. They want to answer back to you. You have brand and identity awareness. And you can make recommendations and you can boost your conversions. Now, a lot of people don't understand that this personalization is actually automatic. So in Translation Commons, we use an automatic customer service person. Her name is Krista. And all the emails that go to the members are from Krista, and they're all automated. But people write back to Krista thanking her, which is very sweet. But it just shows that they take the time because they felt that it was personal, and they take the time to write back. So it's important personalization. There are different ways that you can segment. Segment means separate and create your different categories for personalization. It can be industries. Remember yesterday we said about the term vertical. Vertical is really an industry. It's a different way of saying, you know, an industry. It could be by geography. It could be by proximity to something. It could be by predictive analytics. Who knows what predictive analytics is? Okay, so predictive means to predict, okay, before something happens. Analytics means to analyze the data. So there is a particular application, software, that allows the website, the company, when you are starting to put information in, to predict what you're going to ask. So they already give you what you want, okay? So for example, we have it in CAD tools. Lilt, I believe, has, do they know Lilt here? No, no, but you can explain predictive analytics.
我给大家大概解释几个点。第一个呢 ，GDPR 这是去年2017年吧，前年欧盟出台的一个数据保护法。大家知道，如果你仅仅因为说了几句话，然后搜索引擎就给你推，比如说我们刚才谈论的小猫，它给你推猫粮什么的，这是挺恐怖的，是不是？感觉整个人全部是透明的。所以以后咱们会产生大量的数据，每天大家用手机可能10个小时以上，这些数据如果被有别有用心的人利用的话，那就是非常危险的。所以呢，欧盟是第一个推出了一个数据保护法，叫GDPR， 就是刚才讲的。另外，刚才他讲了一个 Krista， 大家没有乐，我觉得大家可能没有 get 到这个点在什么地方。他讲了我们在 Translation Commons 给所有的这些包括我们的教授啊，包括我们的用户啊，写邮件的时候呢，是一个名叫 Krista 的机器人写的。然后呢，就是有用户他会回信，会谢谢你 Krista， 他觉得这可能是一个真人，所以这就是 Personalization 的一个例子。其实它是一个机器人，但是呢，我们让咱们的用户感觉到他是一个真人在跟你沟通，这样就可以拉近距离。下一个刚才讲了一个叫 vertical， 咱们也提过很多次，包括咱们在开发仪式上讲了，我们要做垂直领域的语料或者垂直领域的搜索。什么叫垂直领域？就是具体的区分一个领域。还有一个叫 Predictive Analytics。举个小例子啊，每年咱们火车票抢的最厉害的时候是春运的时候，对不对？你想，如果很多人在抢的话，那服务器肯定就得增多，要不然没法满足这个需求。大家知道，在阿里巴巴接手12306之前，经常是上不去的，经常是订不到票的。后来呢，他们就是做了这个 Predictive Analytics， 就是我分析什么时间段用户的需求量会多，我就会多部署相关的资源。再举个例子，比如咱们去在国内叫滴滴叫车的时候，通常高峰时段是大家上班或下班的时候，或者下雨天，所以咱们可以提前预测，然后给你安排调度更多的车在高峰时段，这个叫 Predictive Analytics。另外，他讲了一个新的网站叫 Lilt， 或者是一个翻译服务商 LYLT。Lilt 的创始人呢，跟Jeannette是好朋友，之前是 Google Translate 的2个工程师。他们做的 Lilt 就是我翻译的时候，我可以预测你下一句就即将，你要翻译出来是什么东西。或者我再举个例子， 咱们可能现在有一个在中国叫联想输入法，我说完这个字，它后边你想输的字，它都可以给你联想出来。这就是 Predictive Analytics 的其中一个应用。
And also I want to say, when you write a text, do you know when you start writing a word, you get the option above of what the possible word is, and you click that word and you don't have to type. That is the concept of predictive. But with analytics, we add the data information in. So localization is a very big topic, and actually you'll be speaking on Thursday a lot about localization. This slide is only here to show you that it's part of the content management. Localization is a step, and it's important to, when you're looking at the entire content, to know what content to localize, because you don't take those billions or thousands of pages of the website and localize everything. We said yesterday we decide which tiers, language tiers we're going to do. So our priorities are tiers 1. Okay? It's the same way with content. You prioritize the content. So there are certain content that is going to go to certain countries because the users in that country, that content is relevant. But if the content isn't relevant, you're not going to localize that. So you need to satisfy the needs. It has to be compliant. So sometimes you can't localize a page if it's not compliant. You want to generate sales, and you have a geography to follow. The technology that we use for localization has to be integrated in the technology we use for the content management. Now, a content management technology is called Content Management System, or as we short call it CMS, Content Management System. And there are many out. There are platforms, there are commercial, and there are also server-based for clients. And of course, some of them build their own. The localization has, most of the times for the big clients, is an automated workflow. And it's the cultural adaptation and the testing of the product that has to be done. But also here, since we're talking about content, we're not talking about product. Yesterday we talked about product, today we're talking about content. But even the content has to be tested, because if it goes on the website and you have a language which, like German, that has 5 words into one huge one, and you have a vertical box, it's going to be a very bad thing for the German people to read that word interrupted 5 times. So testing is important for content. And you also have to measure the effectiveness of localization. We talked about key performance indicators yesterday for product. Content also has key performance indicators. And again, with content, we want to make sure we have a return on investment. So the taxonomy. Let's go briefly a little bit. Again, as I said, it's a difficult, even for marketeers, it's a difficult aspect of their job. So taxonomy is the science of classification or categorization. That's the only way to describe it properly. The best practices for taxonomy are to be media independent, okay? So this is important because your taxonomy, if it is done for Facebook, is going to be useless for any other social media, okay? So it has to be media independent. If you're, not just, social media, but also website. If you do your taxonomy only for the website, but not for your internal documents, again, you're going to have 2 separate systems. So your taxonomy has to be one for the company. It has to be of specific use. It has to have a logical hierarchy. If you can't figure out what it is, then you're never going to find anything. Easy to understand, and it has to conform to standards. Again, even for marketeers, it's a difficult subject because the standards are very difficult. There are very specific ways, mostly it's academic actually, I think, the taxonomy standards. You have to avoid acronyms. Just because you know something, it doesn't mean that everybody knows what that is. So if you're going to use an acronym, use it in a parenthesis and write the whole thing out. And the rule of thumb is not to use more than 5 levels under as a nest. So a nest is the top level. You can only use up to 5 levels. So each of these 5 levels is its own nest. And again, you don't use more than 5. So it's not the total 5, but each should have no more than 5. And uses. You have to make sure that it's searchable, that it's navigationable, that the content can be reused, and that you can personalize it. Because if you can't personalize, you created a taxonomy which is so depersonalized, then how are people going to find it?
在这个地方呢，有3条点跟大家共享一下。第一个，大家可以看到有一个叫 best practice， 在中文咱们翻译成叫最佳实践。在国外呢有3个跟它并列的，我一块儿给大家提一下，就是在工作当中每个那个公司里包括团队追求的。第一个是 best practice。什么叫 best practice？ 如果我做某项工作，根据过去经验的累积，包括我可能想到的最佳的做法是什么，这样子，尤其是对于经验累积的这些工作，是最佳实践，可以节省时间、节省成本。另外一个他们提的比较多的跟 best practice 就是 automation。我尽量如果机器能做的、软件能做的，就不要人工去做，叫 automation。第3个，我觉得这一点在国内是比较缺乏的，叫 documentation。它需要 well documented。Everything is traceable， 就是我做过的每一项工作必须是可以追踪的，必须是有记录的，就是一种工作的一种习惯。比如说我在做项目经理的时候，我做了3个月，然后接下来有新人来，那我现在有客户，那怎么办呢？在国内跟大家说啊，各种 QQ、微信啊，问了很长时候，在国外基本上就是这个人上午走，下午这个人来完之后就可以新人来就可以接手，因为他把所有的客户资料，包括前期做到什么地方流程，全部都做了一个记录，这是很大的一个区别。下一个他讲了一个叫 acronym，acronym 在中文里边咱们叫首字母缩略词啊，比如说咱们当时讲了一个 CMS， 可能第一次刚接触的人不知道什么是 CMS， 你可以用的办法就是先把它全称写下来 ，Content Management System， 然后用一个括号写一个 CMS。另外一个在分类的时候呢，最好每一个类下边的子类不要超过5个级别，就像你建自己的文件夹一样，如果你弄了10层，你得点10次，一层一层一层，非常的复杂。
Yes. This is just to show you how complicated it can be. I'm not even going to read any of them. You can take a look. The slides will be given to you, so you will have them. But you can understand how complex it is to create a taxonomy. Here's a taxonomy example. I tried to find a very simple one to give you. This is an insurance company. So this is their internal document taxonomy hierarchy. And you can see that the document has the key properties on the top. Then the first class is enterprise document, whether it's active. And then underneath is it a service document? Is it a product document? Is it operations document? Or is it a claims document? Well, if it is a claims document, it could be a group claim or it could be an individual claim. So you see how taxonomy can work. So any document now within this organization will fall within this. And for example, when you have the word claims, the section claims, we talked about no more than 5 levels. So you could have 5 levels under claim, but it has to stop, which means that under group you can have 5 levels, but it has to stop, no more than that. So technology, very briefly, the technology for the content management is a little bit easier to use than our translation technology because it is also addressed for the general public. We have platforms that people can create websites easily. We do have WordPress and Drupal in the States, which I don't believe you have here, but you must have equivalent.
WordPress, I mean.
WordPress, yeah.
WordPress.
Oh, you have WordPress, okay. So WordPress is a content management system, okay? Now WordPress has two levels. The one level is where it's free for people to create their own websites, and the other one is for enterprises where they pay to have a better experience, more functionalities, more features, and it's easier. So that content management system is the same for both of them, it's just that it has more features for the paying clients. So that's a very good example of a content management system. Now, a lot of the companies will have other content management systems which are going to be server-based. So they will buy a product and put it on their own servers and have control over it. So it's not going to be like a cloud platform, right, like WordPress. And the things they're looking for when they're buying a content management system is editorial functionality, content organization, which is taxonomy really, content integration, how do you take the content and migrate it to something else, the workflow, can they integrate this content management technology with translation technology and with all their other internal things. Reporting, if you can't report on with the data, then you lose information. User administration, who is able to use that and write content? You need to have administrators, you need to have different roles, you need to be able to, say, delete them and so on. Security, are they able to publish in different channels? Can they do global delivery? For example, WordPress, you can have any language you want, but there are other content management systems that you may not. So that's a consideration when people choose the system. Is it flexible? Is it easy to use? Can you use personalization engines to add it to them? Can you have good analytics? Can you have an e-commerce leg? WordPress, for example, you can have an e-commerce plugin, translation management system integration, and so on. Okay. Analytics is something which is very popular right now. I just met someone that just finished high school, and she's going to university to do data science. And what it is data analytics. Basically, it's statistics and math and all the things that, provide you with this type of reporting on the back end, databases and everything. This is extremely important today because we have all of this information available. We need people to be able to analyze it. So, content analytics is applying business intelligence and business analytics practices to content, okay? So what content is being created, the amount of it, who creates it, what is the nature, how it's being used, who clicks what. So if you have a page with 5 links, you can measure how many people have gone to this page and how many people clicked on each link. Now this is important information for the content creators. So people who click the 5th link, why didn't they click the first one? Why didn't they click the second one? Was it something in the content? Okay? Or did they design it in such a way that they will have the call for action to click on the 5th link? Okay? So people can go back and then click on the other links if they're interested, if they have generated the lead. And the benefits. The benefits of analytics is to manage the information, determine the value of content. I just gave you an example. Adjust the marketing. Why did they click this one and not the other one? To see if there are any trends. and to see if there is any important information on the geographical use of the website. That would determine whether they're going to localize something or not. Any questions?